My name is Micah Parson, and I am the CEO of the Museum of Us, formerly the San Diego Museum of Man. I'm also the chair of the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, and it's my pleasure to moderate the forum today. We have a wonderful turnout, about 160 people or so, and we now are moving on to our conversation with Toni Duran. This is the first of 5 scheduled forums focusing on arts and culture, one for each council position being elected this year, and we hope you'll attend all 5. Thanks again to the arts and culture groups for coming together to make this happen. Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, San Diego Regional Arts Culture Coalition, and Arts and Culture San Diego. Thank you also again to our attendees who've provided a number of questions that we'll be throwing at the candidates today. So Toni, we'd like to get right to it. I'd like to start though by introducing the other 2 representatives here with me today. Makeda and Caroline, would you mind taking a moment just to tell a little bit about yourself and your organizations?
Sure, Mike, thank you. I'm Makeda Cheatham, and I'm the founder and executive director of the World Beat Cultural Center right here in Balboa Park. It's been at least 30 years or more being the director in the park. A lot of struggles, but we're still here. Toni, I gotta introduce the great Carolyn. How you doing, Carolyn?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks for all the good work you do.
Oh, thank you for being a partner with us in Balboa Park. I'm Caroline Nordquist. I'm from Mingay International Museum. Hi again, Toni. Thanks for joining us. You know, we're in the middle of a huge renovation, so we understand all the infrastructure issues in Balboa Park. We're also temporarily in Liberty Station, so we're very aware of that venue as well. And I'm also serving on the SDRAC steering committee and really passionate about the arts. So really glad to be talking to you today, Toni. And thanks to Makeda and Micah.
Great. Well, thank you both for being such great partners. Let's get into the discussion. Toni, thank you so much for being here today and participating in the forum. It's good to see you again. We have a large number of attendees from arts and culture organizations in District 3 here today, and many around the city as well. We'd like to start by giving you 5 minutes to hold the floor before we start grilling you with questions, to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are running for office in District 3.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Micah and Makeda and Caroline. Good to see you all. And I just want to say, Micah, thank you and congratulations on the name change for being more inclusive. But aside from that, for also connecting with our Indigenous communities to offer the return of their Native ancestors and their cultural items. So I really appreciate that. You know, that's what we're talking about a lot now, is making sure that we are taking care of our communities where let's just say we've just taken too much from them and not given back like we should. So my name's Toni Duran. I'm running for San Diego City Council here in District 3. I live here in North Park, so I'm very close, walking distance to Balboa Park. I have a lot of museums that I get to see, and art museums and art spaces around me. Arts and culture is very important to me, especially the arts part of it. My background is actually in art. I was a graphic designer before I moved to San Diego. And when I was in college, that's when I first discovered for myself how art can move me in a personal manner and help me answer questions about myself that I didn't know how else to answer. And that came through a painting by Vincent van Gogh, the Church in Aver. And District 3 is such a hub for arts and culture here in San Diego. The fact that you all have invested almost $8 million into this specific district in 2019 says a lot about how much arts and culture should be an important factor for our next District 3 council member, which I plan on it being me. But I do want to make sure that I'm working with you all moving forward. For the last 7 years, I've worked for Senator Toni Atkins, very happy to have her full support in this. And covering the neighborhoods of District 3 is what I've done for 5 of those 7 years. So I'm very aware of not only our communities, making sure that I'm going to community meetings and making sure I am connected to groups, but I also picked up arts and culture in our office because it was such a passion project for me. And it's a little lighter than some of my other issue areas like human trafficking. I do women's issues, LGBT issues, I've worked on veterans issues, and like I said, arts and culture is just, it's very close to my heart. And I think we need to also make sure that when we are talking about things like this, that we remind folks that it's not just a painting on a wall that we're talking about in a museum. We're talking about communities and how they express their own culture. It's our Black communities, it's our brown communities, and our immigrant communities. It's dance, it's acting, it's music. It's so empowering and enveloping. And I just want to thank you again for having us today and for talking with all of the candidates and making sure that we're aware of what your priorities are and what ours should be as well. So, thank you.
Fantastic, Toni. Thank you so much. And we might as well get straight to our questions. We really appreciate your commitment to so many aspects of our community. And today, in advance, our attendees submitted a number of questions ahead of time, and we've tried to sort of pull out the ones that came up again and again that are clearly themes that the arts and culture community is particularly concerned about, especially during this challenging time. Makeda, would you kick us off with our first question for Toni?
Thank you, Micah. Toni, as you know, that nonprofits are like a small business, but like all the small businesses, we were hit again. We were hit hard with COVID-19, right? But we weren't able to access the city's recent small business recovery funding. When we emerge from this pandemic, it's going to be devastating for arts organizations, and we're going to be really hobbled, a really hobbled arts and culture sector. We immediately, and we have long-term needs, you know. Would you support city investment or special recovery fund to assist the arts, culture, creativity sector recovering from COVID-19 shutdown and future reopening, and ensure that funding or recovery plan for small businesses also include the arts organizations? So this is really important because we've been left out. So how would you support that, Toni? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Makeda. So often we see, not just in a city budget, but in a school budget, that arts seems to be the first thing that's cut. So while I agree, excuse me, while I agree that nonprofits should be considered in with a small business, I think it's still important that we also have a separate focus on rebuilding our nonprofits. There is such a limited amount of resources, and if we're not including all to have an opportunity to access those resources, we're hurting our city further. So yes, absolutely, we need to focus more on our nonprofits. We need to focus on a recovery plan, not just for our small businesses, but also our nonprofits, like I said, grouping them together, but also pulling out nonprofits separately to see what other funding that we can get to nonprofits that you wouldn't be able to get to a business. You know, it's about calling upon not just city resources, but accessing those state resources and those federal resources to build back up, because if we lose arts, if we lose culture, we're also losing our communities and our history. So I do support that, and I look forward to working with you to make those plans real.
Excellent. Thank you, Makeda and Toni, for your answer. I know that another question that came up a lot pertained to capital reinvestments. Caroline, would you throw that question out, please?
Sure. Toni, as you know, the city owns a number of arts and cultural facilities across the city, among them downtown theaters, Liberty Station buildings, and of course, Balboa Park. Many of these facilities are famously, have significant deferred maintenance, and their surrounding infrastructure is badly underfunded too. We want to ask if you would support and commit to pushing for the creation of a viable action plan to actually fund Balboa Park deferred maintenance, infrastructure, and facilities, as well as increase support for city-owned cultural assets.
Yes, thanks, Caroline, for the question as well. We've seen how not just Balboa Park, but a lot of our city infrastructure is crumbling. We want to call ourselves America's finest city, but we're not taking care of our city. Even our city hall is, let's just say it's got a lot of work that needs to get done. But this part of our arts and our culture and our plays and our dance that's here in San Diego, that helps bring in tourism. And there's going to be a time when the doors are opened back up and we are going to start having people come back to San Diego, and we want to make sure that they have a positive experience. Now, of course, I would support creating new ways and new plans to make sure that we are addressing and fixing these issues and not just talking about it. Now, I don't want us to just keep creating committees and keep creating this and this and this, but then it's just in name only. We need to move forward with it. We need to make sure it happens, because if we're not investing into fixing the crumbling infrastructure now, we're going to keep paying out in lawsuits for folks that, for trip and falls, or, we've seen how sometimes a part of the building will fall down. We need to address this, because it's not just dilapidated and bad on the eyes, but we're close to a fault line. If we're not fixing our infrastructure, we could lose it completely. So absolutely, I support it. I don't want to support it just in name. I want to make sure that we put some teeth into it and we can move forward, get these repairs done, and stop just pushing it down for the next person to deal with.
Can I push you a little bit too and ask you what funding opportunities you might be considering to achieve that investment? I mean, specifically, we've got $300 million in Balboa Park deferred maintenance. Do you have any ideas about how we might actually find that money?
Right. So I know that the state of California had put money into the budget, the last budget, to address some of the infrastructure issues in Balboa Park. This is definitely something we should continue to pursue. Granted, even the state, the budget of the state is diminished by billions of dollars. So our road ahead is long. It's going to take, I hate to say that it's going to take time, but it is, this economic downfall that we face due to this virus is hurting us everywhere. And we can still find resources to get done what we need to make sure that we're staying safe, we're keeping our city safe and beautiful, and that we're able to continue to share the beauty of our city and our communities.
Great. Speaking of funding sources, Toni, as I'm sure you know, 4 cents of every dollar of the tourist occupancy tax raised by the city is specifically dedicated to promotion of the city. And in 2012, the City Council passed a resolution called Penny for the Arts that promised 1 cent of that 4 cent portion would go toward funding and support for arts and culture programs and institutions specifically. To date, however, the funding for arts and culture has fallen way short of that goal. And every year, all of us are forced to engage in a fierce advocacy campaign to try to secure even just a fraction of that funding that had been promised and is so critical to our livelihoods. A key question that has come up a lot with our attendees is, do you support fully funding Penny for the Arts and Culture Plan, which is 9.52% of TOT? And would you support an ordinance that clearly defines a maximum 4-year phased-in timeline and makes Penny for the Arts a definite part of the budget process, rather than being treated as sort of a loose guideline as it currently stands?
Yes, and thank you, Micah. I absolutely support that. The more the Penny for the Arts has been brought up to me, the more it actually upsets me that, you know, here was this plan and this promise that was made to the arts community, and then just like you said, it was like, well, I mean, I know we said we'd do that, but we're not. We need to make sure that when the city says we're going to do something, that we do it. We need to make sure that we have the trust of our communities, so they know that when we say that we are going to do something and we're going to support something, that we are going to do it. I don't want to be a person that just tells you what you want to hear to get me some points down the road. And it sounds like that's almost like what the city did. Yeah, of course, we'll do this for you. We'll help you in this way. And then they pull out, and then what do you do? So obviously I want to have something in writing, so we have it in if we're making it a legal document in some way, but I don't want anybody to have any excuses to pull out of that promise and that plan, because we have to support you. We absolutely have to support arts and culture. Like I said, it's not just, you know, it's not just a wealthy person with you know, incredible art hanging on their walls. This is veterans that are going and learning how to express themselves through art to help deal with their PTS. This is at-risk youth that are learning new ways to express themselves, or new ways to connect to their own community, so they don't have to fall into the criminal justice system. And if they have, so there's no recidivism. This is our seniors that are being connected back to community instead of you know, being really left all alone. This is more than just the words arts and culture. This is the people of San Diego, and we need to show them that we support them in every way possible.
Thank you. We really appreciate that commitment. And you know, our hope is that any candidate for District 3 and any council person will commit to always including achieving and maintaining Penny for the Arts and Culture as a top priority in every budget discussion and initial and revised budget memoranda. I think I know the answer based on your previous answer, but is that a commitment you'd be willing to make as well, Toni?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And if it means that I'm with other council, you know, if there's another council member that is maybe not supportive of that, if that means that I am taking them to different areas of San Diego where this is what arts and culture means, this is what it means to this community, this is what it means to this to the immigrant community, to the Black community, to the brown community. I want to be able to work with you to show other council members and anybody else that might be trying to push it away. I want to be able to show them this is what it means and this is how it's saving lives.
Thank you. Certainly, obtaining a reliable and sustainable funding source and multiple funding sources is one of the most critical issues facing the arts and culture community today, particularly as we navigate the pandemic and look forward in the years to come to a post-pandemic world. In addition, current events, of course, have had an extraordinary influence on what we're all preoccupied with and thinking about and trying to do better as we know better. Makeda, I'd love you to share the next question in that space with Toni, please.
Thank you. Toni, you know, arts and culture for Black people, and I'm sure all people of color, is part of our lives. And I'm glad you recognize it's not just art hanging on the wall. You know, it's daily. And I invite you to the World Beat Center because there's all ages. There's all people together, working together. So Toni, as a part of the mayor's commitment to a city that works for all, the commission has made great strides to ensure that resources it manages are distributed in an equitable manner. To support this, the commission has launched a diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment, a 3-part initiative to assess our successes and deficits, and to ensure that the commission is equipped to provide public sector work within the city's diverse communities. So Toni, I just want to know this. How would you work with the commission to ensure that access, equity, and diversity maintain a priority in all neighborhoods? Because sometimes I don't see that, you know, and in all neighborhoods.
Thanks, Makeda. I appreciate that this is an idea on the table, that this will be something built up. I talk constantly about how there are times where I'm the only woman in the room, I'm the only person of color in the room, I'm the only LGBT person in the room. We see so often so many of these commissions and councils that do not reflect the diversity of our city. I want to ensure that we have folks on these, you know, involved with these groups that have the lived experience, that I want those voices brought to the table. I want to make sure that we're seeing diversity, not just in color, not just in age, not just in background. I want more of the immigrant community on these boards and commissions. We can't just talk about diversity because it's the thing to do. And too often I see that. And so it's so important that we push that forward. And if it means that we're making people uncomfortable because we are pushing for that, let's do it. Because too often our Black and brown and immigrant communities have been pushed aside and have had their voices silenced and have not been given that seat at the table. So I want to see more of those voices, more of those faces, and I will fight to make sure that that happens. I will review it along with other council members, and I will push for it.
Thanks so much, Toni. I'll be looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Great. There's a further question I'd like to ask you, Toni, and it has to do with it's a structural issue. And then we'll turn it over to some of the questions that have emerged in the Q&A from our attendees live. As we've discussed at length today, San Diego, of course, has an incredibly diverse, culturally and historically rich arts and culture community. But in many ways, it lacks the level of engagement and support from the city that a lot of our sister cities that have reached, attained world-class status are enjoy. Right now, there's an effort to create a planning and engagement process from the city to foster the strength of the arts, culture, and creative community through a cultural plan and a cultural affairs department that would ensure that planning is actually implemented. Is the creation of a cultural affairs department and the development of a citywide cultural plan that would elevate arts and culture as an industry critical to not just our economic health, but also our quality of life in San Diego, is that something that you would support?
Absolutely. I think I've stated more than a few times this morning that diversity is such a key aspect of even why I'm running. It's far too long that we haven't had these focuses. We have such a diverse city. We have so many different immigrant communities and different faces and different cultures throughout our city. And too often we don't see it because it's not out there. You know, we pick and choose what we promote. We pick and choose what we put forth before someone. And too often it's all about, well, this is going to make me the most money, so this is what I'm going to do. And we can't keep doing that. We need to make sure that folks are aware that we do have a diverse community of culture throughout San Diego, and that highlighting our communities, highlighting our culture only makes us better. You know, we're learning more about other communities. We're learning more about where people came from. It helps us learn more about ourselves as well. So yes, it's very important that we do that. You know, it's representation matters, and we have to not just say that. It's not just a hashtag. We need to live it.
Thank you. Well said. We have a few extra time, and we've got some great questions in the Q&A from our attendees live. I'd love to turn it over to Caroline and Makeda to alternate questions. We may have time for at least 2 and maybe even 3 or 4. So Caroline, you want to get us started?
Yeah, sure. We did have a question about diversity and inclusion, but I really feel like you've addressed that. So I'm going to throw another question your way. We had a couple people ask, in your opinion, what can the city do better to facilitate, encourage, or incentivize philanthropic support for Balboa Park? And I think that question was more asked in the context of how do we get the public to understand that our park is falling apart in many ways? And how do we spread the word and get people to understand how they can support that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we all met last year during the primary, you know, there were discussions that we were having about, you know, how do we bring more money in, and, you know, suggestions were made about ballot measures. But one of the things that I've talked about is the philanthropy of our own communities. We do have a lot of folks that live in San Diego that really can afford to personally invest more in their city. And I mean, really, it's a feel-good thing too. You know, we can put that forward in front of people to say, this is what you can help do. This is what you have helped do. This is how you can support your community more. This is, I mean, you know, really, it's all feel good. People like to feel good about giving their money, and I think it's easy to do that. We just need to make sure it's in front of people and let them know that that's an option. You know, we're living in a pandemic right now, and there are a lot of people that don't have anything. I talk to them every day, you know, trying to connect them to income from EDD to get unemployment. But I cannot assume that every person in San Diego is living that same life right now. There are folks out there that can help support and want to help support. They just need to know where that support needs to go. So education and outreach, absolutely, communication is key.
Great. Makeda, how about you?
Yes, this came up again. This is so important because it really gets to my heart. Because people don't realize how important arts to the community is, you know? So for many who need housing, jobs, healthcare, etc., supports for the arts seems lower on the list. How would you, Toni, as a council member, change that attitude to raise it to be important? It's an important issue as everything else. How would you change this feeling that people have that art is just frivolous?
And that, you know, just like I was saying earlier, that's the thing is we need to make sure that we're talking more about what art is. What is that connection? How does it help people? Honestly, I've seen it help save people's lives. I know of different programs where veterans work within the arts community. They might not know how to paint or draw, but they're able to express themselves through that art, through building face masks or drawing a picture or, you know, doodling in a notebook. And it helps them express that pain and that anger that they feel that they haven't known how to do before. It's stories I hear about young kids that have been incarcerated, and there's that connection made with them. And so when they you know they come out, they're connected to these organizations that can help teach them how to do, you know, how to make videos, how to express themselves through music, how to express themselves through art. You know, it gives them that purpose and shows them that people care about what they're doing, that they care about their lives, they care about their futures, and that helps reduce recidivism in our jail system. We have through the California Arts Council so many grant funding options that are available, and I look at them each time they come up, and just seeing the wide range of focus that there is on different types of arts. You know, that here you can apply for this if you're working with women. Here you can apply for this if you're working with veterans, if you're working with formerly incarcerated adults, at-risk youth. You know, there is that focus to show that it's not just about painting a picture and trying to sell it to somebody for $1 million so they can hang it on their wall and just have it sit there. It's more than that. And education around that is important.
Excellent. I think we have time for one more question from the attendees. Caroline?
Yeah, this is a broader, maybe philosophical, harder question. But if you are in office, how do we hold you accountable to the arts and culture community once you're in office? And in general, how do we hold all elected officials in the city accountable to the arts and culture, you know, sector?
Well, for one, I think I've I think I've expressed how passionate I am about the arts. You know, I have a lot of passions in my life. I have a lot of focus on how we can make our city better. Humanity is just so, I don't know. I keep thinking of everything that's happening in our city right now. How important it is that we have homes for folks that are experiencing homelessness, making sure that we have access for mental health care, making sure that our small businesses still thrive, making sure that arts and culture is not something that goes away. And I always make sure that I leave folks feeling that they know when I say I have an open door policy and I want to be held accountable, that is true and that is clear. I want to have, I will have that connection with you all, whether it's through the city's commission for arts and culture, whether it's like Caroline through the excuse me, the coalition, the cultural coalition, where we're trying to help raise funds, and you all are trying to make sure that you are holding government accountable. But for me, I'm going to have that open door policy. I'm going to meet with you. I'm going to stay connected. I'm going to be visiting you. I mean, just seeing how many hubs we have here in District 3 around arts and culture is so important. But I also want to make sure that as a District 3 council member, that I'm helping to expand that out to other districts. I took a look and I saw how much investment is made into some of our other council districts. And many of them are council districts where it's more people of color, and there isn't as much focus there. So working with other council members to make sure that we're expanding out and we're not forgetting other communities is really important for me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Toni. We wanted to wrap up by offering you the opportunity to, after hearing the questions that have been asked today and the conversation, is there anything else you'd want to share with this group today about arts and culture or otherwise that you haven't already shared? And we'd be happy to give you up to 5 minutes to do so if you'd like.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Micah. And I just want to say, I want to make sure that you all are using me to help promote yourselves as well. I understand that I come from a place of privilege because I do work for a state senator. I am running for office. I do have connections and relationships that I've made throughout my time here in San Diego. I know how government works at the state level. I know how we work with our local communities through the county and through the city. Like I said, I have those connections. And so I want to make sure that you use me as an extra arm out there, an extra touch piece, an extra person to help promote your ideals and your information. And also, please reach out to me and let me know what I've missed. Just like Caroline said, hold me accountable. It's just, I surround myself with art, and I know it tells a story. It tells stories about folks who have been homeless, who have suffered from abuse, who have lost people. This is exactly why I'm running for office, is because we need to have more focus on folks and support them and help them through and make our city better. So I encourage you to reach out to me. Toni for San Diego is my website. I think most of you have my contact information, but Micah, feel free to share that out as well. But yeah, make sure that I know, and I'm already in the works to work with a coalition. So we do have a plan for recovery. I want to make sure that when I am in your new city council member, that we already have plans in place to move forward. And thank you again for spending part of the morning with me.
Thank you, Toni. It's so nice to connect with you again. We really appreciate your transparency and your accessibility and your willingness to listen and learn and hold yourself accountable in partnership. So really appreciate that. We wish you luck in the campaign and hope to continue these conversations. Thank you to Makeda and Caroline, wonderful partners in crime as always, and for the wonderful work that you folks are doing in the community. We all have a lot to think about after these fora, and a lot going on in all of our worlds. I wanted to share before we let you folks go that the next candidate forum is August 10th at 2 p.m. This is for District 9, and information will be sent out. We all know that the most important civic duty we can engage in is to vote and let people know what our values are and what's important to us as a community. And so I hope everybody gets out there. Thank you so much for your investment today in this forum and subsequent forums. We appreciate your questions, and hope everybody stays well and healthy and safe, and that we can support each other as a community and continue to find ways to emerge out of this pandemic as a better version of ourselves. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you at the next forum, and be safe in the meantime. Bye-bye.